I'm Tyler Lowry. I'm here with Carl Groenewold. It is November 27th, 2016, around 4:20, and we're going to be discussing the Vietnam War era. Thanks for meeting with me. We're going to start off with some personal background. So when and where were you born?
I was born in Hastings, Nebraska.
Okay.
Let's see, October 22nd, 1942.
What were your parents' names?
My mother's name is Fedora, and my father's name was Carl, same as mine. He was known in the area as Speed Groenewold.
Oh, yeah. Why was that?
Well, it could be because of a Humphrey Bogart movie from years ago in the I think out of the 40s. He was an over the road truck driver, and that was what that movie was called. It was They Drive by Night, and Humphrey Bogart. They called him Speed, but that could also have to do with the amount of time that it took him to get from point A to point B.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty fast, was
Yeah,
it?
yeah, he was. Yeah, he was.
So that kind of goes with, can you describe what were your parents like?
Well, my mother was a beauty operator in Hastings. Previously, let's see, she comes from the Sand Hills area, and she was a school teacher for a while. And let's see, this is all before me. This is just from what information I've been given. But she moved here to Hastings, went to the beauty academy to be a beautician, and she worked for a while for, I can't remember what her name was. Had a shop in the basement under Geierman's downtown, and then Mom went out on her own, and she bought the property over on 5th Street, where she had her beauty shop in the home, which worked out good because she was there and I was there as a little kid, and she still lives in that property today. My parents divorced in, oh my, I've got to think. I suppose in the early 50s, I got to think when it might have been. And then I didn't see much of my dad from there on until later years.
Before that, were you guys pretty close, though?
With my mother,
Yeah.
my dad was seldom home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do you have siblings?
No.
No? Alright. Did you, have any close friends that you grown up with, that you hung out with a lot?
Well, yeah, I had a few. Gosh, most of them are. Let's see, Jerry Graham was one, but he's dead now. And Roger Gittert was another good friend of mine that died some years ago. There was a couple other ones. Roy Crook, he's off in California. The last I knew, he could be dead too, but now I've completely lost touch with him, and another fella that his name was Douglas MacArthur. That's what we all knew him about, and that's what he thought his name was until he joined the Navy, and found out that that was not his name.
Really?
his mom had remarried this fella, and his name was MacArthur. And Doug thought all his life, from a kid on up, that what he called his dad had adopted him, and he never had. And for the life of me, I do not know what that man's last name was, because he's always going to be Douglas MacArthur to me.
Yeah, yeah. So how would you describe your childhood?
Well, pretty I think, pretty normal. Going to, going to school there in Hastings, that I've pretty much spent all my youth in Hastings, except in the summer months when I spent the summers with my grandparents that had a farm in Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. All right. So, moving on to the Vietnam War. So, what were you doing before the war had started?
Well, when I was in my senior year of high school, well, I guess I'll back up a little bit. When I was still in high school, we decided that it'd be nice to have a basement under the house. It was an old house and just had a hole in the ground for a basement. I don't know if you know how some of them houses were. They had a foundation and then it was dug out in the middle of the house and bricked up to hold the dirt back, and that's where the furnace and the water heater was at. And in that era house, it also had a coal bin, and that was the extent of the basement. And we thought that it'd be nice to have a full basement, but didn't have the money to hire somebody to do it. So with a pick and a shovel, a 1953 Buick and a two-wheel trailer, I dug out that basement. So that kept me busy for my last 2 years of high school. And well, I guess, and then the electrical inspector there at Hastings, we called Smitty's Electric to put a new electric service in the house while we had it all tore apart. And the electrical inspector, Clyde McMahon was his name, came and did the inspection, and I didn't think that I was making any impressions on anybody, but he had commented, well, later I was mowing the grass when I was a senior, and of course the basement was done by then, and McMahon was driving by and he stopped and visited a little bit, and he said, what grade are you in? I said, well, I'm senior, this is the last year. He says, well, what are you going to do when you get out of high school? And I said, Clyde, I haven't got a clue.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I'm going to do. And he said, well, have you ever thought about being an electrician? And I said, no. He said, well, you think about it. He says, it's clean work and it's easy. That was the first lie that I ever was told. But, and he commented, he said, any kid that'll would dig it out of basement with a pick and shovel ought to be able to do about anything. So he put in a good word for me at Guarantee Electric Company in Hastings. And so I went to work there. And I worked there for, oh gosh, let's see, 60, 61, 60. Not quite 2 years, because my number was coming up for the draft. And the gal at the draft office gave mom a heads up that my number was coming, and if I didn't want to go to the army, or I need to consider enlisting if I wanted something else. And so thought about it, and I thought, well, yeah, if I gotta do this, I think I'll join the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
So I went down to the recruiter, joined the Air Force, and in let's see, February, I think it's probably like February 14th. I was inducted into the Air Force out of Omaha, and took a plane to Texas, San Antonio, Texas, February. So I got to spend my first winter in a milder climate.
Yeah.
And well, I guess that's how I got into that branch of the service.
So when you were sent over and you were recruited, what did you start off doing when
Oh.
you first got there?
Well, in San Antonio, that's basic training. That's where you march around and salute and do calisthenics and peel potatoes and all this sort of stuff. And then when you get through that, then they sent me to Rantoul Air Force Base in Chanute. Oh no, it was Chanute Air Base in Rantoul, Illinois, and that was a training base, and they trained me in mechanics of what they call ground power equipment, aircraft support equipment, and oh boy, how long was I there? Oh, probably 12. Yeah, probably 12 weeks. I think I was there, and when I went through that, I was stationed at Offutt Air Base. It was SAC headquarters. They assigned me to Strategic Air Command bomber outfit, and so I I first started out doing anything productive was in Omaha, Offutt, and oh gosh, let's see, I can't tell you for sure what the years were when I was there, but while I was there, we went on a what they call temporary duty assignment to, of all places, Hickam Air Force Base, which is in Honolulu, Hawaii. You talk about tough duty. That was tough. Every day, perfect weather. You do it at about 20 after 4. It was going to rain on you, nice warm shower, and then the sun would come back out again. And that worked out nice. I had a cousin that was a reporter for the Honolulu Times, and he lived there in Honolulu. So after I'd been there a while and got settled in, I looked up the telephone number and gave him a call. And I got a hold of his wife, and she, I told her who I was. Well, yeah, she knew the name, and and all that. And she said, well, she says, come on over, she says. And she said, Dale's out of town, he's in London, but come on over. And so went over there. Well, I guess I back up a little bit. While I was there, I wasn't mechanicing when I was there. I was in the headquarters with the commander that they'd sent over there. There was me and 2 other fellas. There was 3 of us, and our duties there were to be there from 4:30 until 8 o'clock the next morning, and in case anything was going on, that could answer the phone and contact the commander if need be. And so that was real easy duty. He said, because at 1 o'clock, he said, if nothing's going on, 1 o'clock, if you want to, there's a cot in there, just go to sleep. He says, if you think you could wake up with the phone. I said, yeah, that's no problem. So here I was. I got 3 days off. I'd show up at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd stop by the chow hall and get an in-flight lunch to take with me, and then I'd eat lunch there at the desk. And 1 o'clock, nothing going on. I went to bed. I slept till 6 that next morning. Got up, got the coffee made, washed my face, combed my hair, and there was a major that he'd usually come in about 7 or 7:30 when he came in, I was gone. I was on vacation. All the time I was there, I got a good night's sleep, so go again. And anyway, I got a hold of my cousin, his wife, and she said, well, come on over. So I went over there, and she didn't drive, but they had a Carmen Ghia automobile, and she liked to see the island and that, but Dale, he was always on the road, always gone. He never wanted to go anyplace when he came home, so she said, have you got a driver's license? I said, yeah. She said, well, come on, I'll show her the island. We went places where tourists never go, and I really had a good time there. So I spent, that one night, 2 nights I spent there. Well, I had to get back on duty again, so I thanked her, and I said, when Dale comes back, give me a call and we'll get together. So I went back, and I told her I was with Operation Hard Look, is what it was called. And I went back, and I never heard from him, and I never heard from him, and quite a bit of time went by, and I finally decided, well, geez, I wonder if Dale should be back by now. So I gave him a call, and I got a hold of him, and he said, for crying out loud, he said, well, I'm glad you called. He said he'd got back the next week, and he tried to get a hold of me. He called out to the air base, and he says he was looking for Carl Groenewold with Operation Hard Luck. They said, there's no such an operation out here. So I knew he was somewhat secure, but I didn't know he was that secure.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, that was my Hawaii story. Now let's see, you want to know then, from there, where did I go? From there I went to Glasgow, Montana, from Offutt, and while I was there, I went to Okinawa, spent a little time in Okinawa. That was the first time, you know what that SR-71 Blackbird airplane is? You heard what? Well, that was a new aircraft at that time, and was out there, and one of them, they had some engine trouble or something, and they were stationed out there. I didn't realize it at the time. They were stationed at Okinawa, but that thing came in the first and only time I ever seen one, when I was in the Air Force, and you look at that thing and see that coming in, you wonder, holy crap, is that ours, or is that even of this world? Because it was really way out for something out there in the 60s. And let's see. I guess I was in a hurricane while I was there. They flew all the aircraft out and left kind of a skeleton crew there, and before that hurricane was over, I was wondering why they didn't take me with them, with the airplanes, because that was more excitement than I cared for, being in a hurricane. Let's see. Then from there I went to Thailand. Thailand was. I enjoyed Thailand. I enjoyed the Thai people, and probably because I was out on a remote air base there, it was very what's the word I want? Can't think of the word, but there wasn't much of anything there. There was a couple of metal buildings, big cement runway, and taxiways and pads there for the aircraft, and we had what they called hooches, which was pretty nice. The weather there in Thailand wasn't bitterly cold, but they had solid walls with screens and canvas roof and doors on the walls you could let down, in bad weather, or you could just have them up, and it was just like sleeping outdoors without any bugs. And that was that was, pretty nice sleeping quarters. When you think of the guys that were really doing the work, sleeping in the mud and slopping out there. It's kind of why I decided I wanted to get in the Air Force. I didn't want to sleep in a tent in the mud, and I sure didn't want to get stuck on a boat for 8 months out of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoyed that. There was the only civilian population was a little town of Sodahib. Sodahib was a little town, a little village, probably about like, I don't think it was as big as Donovan. And kind of reminded me like, Dodge City, Kansas might have been in Matt Dillon's day. The buildings were not painted, had the false fronts on it, dirt streets, but there was a Buddhist temple there, and they were in the village. There was some holiday, some celebration when they had the parade through the town. But I was there early enough that the base was new enough that I would say that the population had not been exposed. They hadn't been Americanized. They hadn't been exposed to the Americans. And the Americans, for the life of me, I wished that when they're sending troops overseas into foreign countries like this, especially into Asia,
Mm-hmm.
and that they give, for crying out loud, a little bit of indoctrination to customs and the people that are there, because these people, their first meet an American they gotta have a really poor attitude about what these kind of people are, because they're we're rude and and crude, and it's just I'm embarrassed for for the people there, I guess, for what they had to put up with with American troops. You get into the big the big cities like Bangkok and that. Fortunately, I the only longest time I was in Bangkok was you just landed the planes there and offloaded some stuff, and we launched again over the mountains, and we was in Ban Utapao Air Base is where we was at. Got to see the King and the Queen of Thailand. They did a motorcade to the base. She was a pretty woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was pretty. And the Thai people, my impression of them was they are very, very humble people, and just I guess a welcoming type of people. They're the kind of people you'd like to be around.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, from that, where was I? Well, I guess from there I was back to Montana. From that, one thing I would have liked to have done, probably wouldn't have been too safe to do. I think I got myself. I was kind of getting out sometimes in places where I probably shouldn't have been, just because of the close proximity to where the military action was. We was bordered right there, with Laos and Thailand, just or Vietnam, just right in that area, and there's got to be enemy combat. It's in the area. Air Force didn't have any sidearms. We're not combat troops. Got people covering us. We had some Marines and some of the Thai people that were guards you know, the bad dudes were covering our tails out there, you know, on the perimeter and that. It'd be about the biggest danger hazard we had was that one of the things with the little hooch there, you didn't you didn't have indoor plumbing. You know, you had to walk down the sidewalk to the latrine and the showers, you know, remote building. And if you did have to get up in the night, you carried a flashlight with you, and you walked in the middle of the sidewalk and held that light ahead, because if you seen two little rubies coming up, that was a cobra. You go another direction. And when it rained, this base was built on a swamp. And when it rained, this was some dry land up here where we was living, and them guys would come out there. We kept the doors shut on the hooch. We didn't want any visitors inside. But I guess where I was going. One thing I would have liked to have done, but it's just as well as I didn't. They had the mahouts, the elephant drivers, and they worked the teak for us with those elephants. And that'd have been a hoot. I'd have liked to gone out there and spent the day with them guys out in the teak forest. But no such luck. I probably would never got back.
So where were you, and like what were you doing when the Vietnam War actually started?
Well, when the war started, I was still, gosh, I was still in school.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I can't remember what year the war did start, but but it was going when I enlisted. It was, you know, or when I was going to get drafted. They'd been drafting people quite a while.
Yeah. So were you pretty tuned in on what was going on before you did
Well,
almost got drafted? I said.
Yeah, not not so much as just knew that there was a war going on. I did not have a militant attitude like some of some people in there. I'm going to get off subject with this just a little bit, because this is a question I've got for you. What you've been told about the Vietnam War? One of the things, have you studied about Jane Fonda? Does that name ring a bell to you? Jane Fonda does not ring a bell to you. She is, I suppose, I think, yeah, she's still alive. She was an actress, just like so many people in Hollywood, in the entertainment field, that they've produced nothing. They have not produced anything for the good that anybody, the American public could benefit by, other than they are entertainers. I call them nothing more than what in medieval times a court jester. But they have notoriety. And she was a anti-war advocate. And so she used her notoriety. She traveled to Vietnam. And of course, at that time, we had a lot of American combat people, Marines, Army, whatever, captured and were held prisoner by the Viet Cong. So she goes to Vietnam. She was, without the permission of the United States government. She is militant. I am American. You don't tell me what to do. I'll do what I want. She goes to Vietnam, and she meets up with the Viet Cong. And because she is anti-war, she sides up with the Viet Cong, the enemies of America. And she visits a prison camp. And the commandant gets these American prisoners out, lines them up. There's this American actress. She goes down through the line, and greets all of these American prisoners. And these guys think, we got an American here. She'll be going back home. We have a way of letting our loved ones at home know that we are still alive. So each time she shook somebody's hand, they slipped her a piece of paper with a Social Security number on it. And she went down through all the prisoners, collecting all them Social Security numbers. And when she made the rounds and back to the commandant, she gave them all, handed them to him. Every one of those prisoners was assassinated. And you haven't heard that.
Mm-mm.
That's the kind of stuff that you guys need to know. The woman is still alive. She was married to Ted Turner. Probably the only negative ramification that come to her was Ted Turner bought a ranch up in the Sandhills, out north of north of Whitman, north of Mullen, up in there, for his buffalo. And he was married to Jane Fonda at that time. So he was up, Ted Turner was up there, brought Jane Fonda up there with him, showing the empire. And so I think they probably figured, well, let's go into town and grace the Mullen public with our presence, you know. And they went into Red's, which is a cafe there at Mullen. And when they walked in the door, Red seen him coming. And he walked up to them. They just came in the door. And he said, "Mr. Turner, you're welcome here, but that bitch ain't."
Mm-hmm.
So they turned around and left. But that's Jane, and we see so much of this going on now. During the Vietnam War, yeah, there were a lot of a lot of dissent and people that were anti-war. And yes, it was not a popular war.
Right.
The only thing I can see about it, if we want to put ourselves in the same position as the Vietnamese people, if we had let's go back to Civil War times. You got the South and the North, they're at loggerheads. Well, you've got a communist group that is getting a toehold, you know, and brutal people, you know, killing their own people, you know, because that they're not communist. They don't want to be communist. So you ask for some help, and okay, we would want, you know, some help coming in here, you know, if we needed it.
Mm-hmm.
So you put yourself, you know, into that position. Well, okay, so maybe it is good that, you know, that United States was involved. But you also look at it that from the Viet Cong point of view on it, these guys are invading my country, you know. So you know, where do you balance this out? Yeah. But okay, you look at today, the activities we got, and oh good God, this last election thing. Well, but even before that, you have all of these demonstrations, and it looks to me like it's more of an excuse to loot. You know, You can't have a civil disagreement. But boy, this last election really shows it. It don't make any difference which side you was on. Man, there is no. It's total animosity. There's no getting along. Well, okay, let's get over the election. Let's make this work. No, and you got people burning police cars and rioting in the streets. But I think a lot of that is professional agitators, putting it on, encouraging it, and they get involved in this looting or demonstrations in the cities. It's an excuse to loot. You throw a garbage can through a store window and grab an armload of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Where were we at? I went off again.
We were talking about from the Vietnamese point of view.
Oh, from the Vietnamese point. Well, I would say that that just like I expressed there, there were there were atrocities done by Americans in that conflict, but gosh, can you relate to the combatant soldier out there who's getting shot at, and his buddies are getting shot and killed, and you don't know who your enemy is. You go into these villages, and you don't know if they're rice farmers or if they're Viet Cong. And the Viet Cong used that, I think, to their advantage a lot, because what are you going to do with a villager that, a farmer that raises rice? How are you going to stand up to Viet Cong with automatic weapons and trained to kill? So they would hide weapons, and that sort of stuff, and in the huts, that these people lived in, and so Americans come in there after so much time, put yourself in that position. You're in there, you're getting shot at, and your buddy's getting killed, and you're suspicious of Viet Cong in this village. You go a little wacko and you torch the place. You shoot everybody in sight, and set the place ablaze. That kind of goes back to, who was that? That goes back to the Crusades, when I can't remember who it was. They was asking, they go out and they were supposed to, the Crusades kill the infidels and save the Christians, and the guy said, well, how do we know who's the infidel and who's the Christian? And whoever it was says, well, kill them all, let God sort it out, So I think that's kind of the attitude that was maybe some of the soldiers in that at that time. It wasn't a clean war like World War II. You had a pretty good idea who your enemy was, and that was a whole different war. If that hadn't turned out the way it did, we could all be speaking German and doing Nazi salutes today. That was.
So, was there any specific experience from the Vietnam War that you remember the most vividly?
No, I don't have any, and I'm very thankful for this. I was very fortunate. I don't have any negative experiences. Didn't have anything too exciting. I gained a lot of respect for the bomber pilots. Those guys. Even though they're able to drop their ordnance from
Way up.
high altitude, they're out of the range of the artillery, but can you imagine flying along in a B-52 bomber? it don't move around like a fighter does,
Right.
and the lights start going off on the panel. You got a missile launched and it's headed your direction, and then you got to make this decision: do you dump the flak, to divert it, or you drop the flares, if it's a heat seeker. And holy crap,
Mhm.
I don't want that job.
Yeah.
Most exciting thing I did was was in a KC-135 stratotanker that for aircraft refueling, and in the pod there where the boom operator goes. But that was about all the biggest excitement that I had, and I'm very glad that I didn't have any more.
Yeah. So you weren't like in like Vietnam doing that kind of stuff. So like how did you get information about Vietnam War? Did you just hear it from like your upper ranks? Or
Yeah.
They just tell you?
Yeah, and of course the news, that was a big deal with the Viet. To answer your question, no, I was not on the ground
Right.
in Vietnam.
Yeah.
But with the Vietnam War was the first war that wasn't sanitized. World War II, the American public didn't see the bodies blowing apart, and the same way with Korea conflict, you didn't see that. But Vietnam, being the political war, I think you'd call it, as it was, and the distaste for it here in America, the news media didn't censor. You got to see what it was really about. And when you had the I'm sure I know there's some news footage of these GIs setting fire to the huts,
Mm-hmm.
and but I've known people that returned from Vietnam, Marine. He killed himself. My cousin, he was in Vietnam, and a sniper shot him off of a bridge. He was guarding the bridge. He got killed there. So there's a big difference. I was in the technological end of that.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't out there on the ground.
So did you, like while you were out there though, like did you like watch the news and like get kind of information from your
Yeah,
higher ranks
yeah,
together?
yeah, yeah. Nothing. We weren't censored. Nothing was censored like that. Coming to us.
So you thought the news coverage, the media covered it pretty well in a way, I guess.
Well, yeah. I'm thinking that there's, well, of course, in a free society, you shouldn't have censorship. But still, maybe we shouldn't have censorship, but maybe we shouldn't know everything that's going on.
Right.
Because there's a lot of stuff that you see, maybe you don't have the whole story, and you don't know. Those guys that were setting fire to those hoops, they could have been getting the hell shot out of them,
Yeah,
before that.
yeah.
They're just totally pissed,
Mm-hmm. So do you think that kind of affects the anti-war movements
Yes.
that were back home?
Yeah, I think so.
What was your outlook on those? Like, what did you think of the protests?
Well, there again, I'm from the Midwest, out here in Hastings, Nebraska. We don't have that kind of crap going on out here.
Right.
I'm not out here in L.A. and these cities, where you do have the militant and we see it today with Al Sharpton and these guys. They like to keep that keep that race thing baiting going, you know. Keep the guys out there in the street marching and setting fires.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, crying out loud, there again, I go back to World War II. That was probably what I would call the last really justified war that we were involved in. And I venture to say that today, I hope we don't ever have. I hope we don't get tried. That if we had a situation like World War II started out, you know, and have somebody building a war machine and taking over the world, I don't know if, because we don't have a draft anymore.
Right.
And I don't know, I really don't know if you get the guys to go out there and put their life on the line like that again. Yeah. That was really something. Because you didn't, sure, they had a draft going in World War II, but there were some people that got drafted, but there was tons of people that were flocking to the recruiting places to sign up. People that were lying about their age,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to get in.
Because it was like a just war.
That's right, justified, they're protecting home, protecting their family.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't had a war like that you could really say you were protecting your family. But yet, you look at Kuwait, Iraq,
Mm-hmm.
Iran, you know, if you don't get a handle on this stuff, it can work its way over. Well, we got hit there at the towers in New York.
Mm-hmm.
That was an act of war.
Mm-hmm.
Hit right here in America. And if you just sit back and wash your hands, oh well, it's not our country, somebody else, let them deal with it. It'll get. I think it'll get away from you, and you won't be able to stop it.
Right.
You know.
So, can you describe kind of what the atmosphere of like people had during the war? Like, what was the atmosphere like? Were most people that you were around like for fighting or against it, or what was it?
They're really, they never really expressed for or so much.
Right.
I don't know that there was anybody that I was associated was all gun ho. Hey, let's go, let's blow
Right.
something up, But they weren't. Let's get the hell out of here. I'm,
Yeah.
better red than dead. Burn my card and go to Canada. I wasn't around any, didn't see any of that. But I gotta say that I think I had better quality friends. The quality of the people that I hung around was,
So, what was your kind of view on the war when the war first started versus toward the end of the war? Did it change?
Well, yeah, and I guess I was out of there. Let's see, I got out in 1968. In February is when I was discharged.
Mm-hmm.
Probably one of the things that weighed on, for my decision whether I would make the Air Force a career or not was I made it this 4 years without getting a bullet in me. Why press my luck? I did my obligation,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll go on, because I guess I gotta look at it that I didn't have anything I didn't see myself having anything at stake,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to my uncles and yeah, it'd be my uncles that were in World War II. You know, and parents too.
So, how would you say the soldiers, both during and kind of after the war was over, how they were treated, and like, did they get proper care? Do you think?
Well, there is, after the war, here again, we as supposed to be an intelligent being, it's amazing how easily we could be manipulated. And I think that's the way the American citizens, you know, manipulated toward anti-war. And they can't get their hands around the neck of the politicians, but they can sure get up next to a GI, you know. And I think they took a lot of their anger and frustrations out on the American GI, who was in there not because he was thought this would be exciting. That's, you know, wasn't there. He was there because,
Right.
you know, he had a club over his head. He either go or, you know, suffer the consequences. And there again, I enlisted. I did not enlist because I was all excited, and this was the thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
I enlisted because I was going to get drafted, and if I would have gotten drafted, I would have still gone because I was raised in an environment that this is what you do. This is, you know, this is your duty. You know, you get all of this luxury of living in the, you know, the kind of a country we got. Somebody's got to protect it. This is the other thing that curdles my shit. You got Jane Fonda enjoying all the benefits of living in America, and yet she caused probably the one single person caused the death of more American GIs than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Bring that to attention in your class.
I'll bring it up. Yeah, I know we've talked about several things, like, wasn't a pretty war, that's for sure.
No.
That's the gist I've gotten was several things have gone wrong. That one in particular, I don't think has come up yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'll bring that up. If you could explain the war in one word, what word would you use and why?
One word I have for the Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm.
Brutal.
Brutal.
I just say brutal. It, yeah. The total disregard for human life, you know, on both sides.
Yeah. So actually, let me back up. Was there something that you think that we could have done differently that would have been better than the way that the whole thing was handled?
No, I can't. And I've got to give myself, to give a logical reason why I can't. I don't have all the information. And that's the same thing with what's going on today. Mm-hmm. And with the civilian population, how they get all in a tirade and to the point they want to destroy. You don't have all the information. You only get part of the information. And I contend that you can take about anything and only give you one bit of the information on it to sway your decision,
Mm-hmm.
however direction I would want it to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and no, we don't. You know, one of the things just recently, you know, we're hearing about this presidential election, and Trump, how he has been kind of backpedaling on some of the stuff that he was going to do. Now he's in a position that he's getting some information that's not privy to the American public.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's kind of a eye-opener. When you look at any of these guys that have been presidents, you ever notice how fast they age?
Mm-hmm.
Good God, look, their hair turns white.
Mm-hmm.
They age terrible fast. I wouldn't want all that.
Mm-mm.
I don't want to know all that stuff.
No. It's a stressful job.
Yeah.
I think I've seen that they age like 4 times as fast.
Oh,
or
yeah, look at
something.
Obama, you know, from when he went
Yeah.
in. 8 years is not all that much, but look how white-headed he's got.
Yeah. That's the stress of all that information out there. So once the war was finally over, was there anything that you would say was permanently changed from it?
No,
No.
I don't believe it was. Still got the Viet Cong.
And then, what lessons did you learn that you would want others to remember about this time in history?
Maybe not be so quick to jump in the middle of the fire.
Mm-hmm.
But there again, I don't have, you know, all the information, you know, from coming up in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that you can say you, one of the things would be don't get into a conflict unless you've got the backing of the American people. But if you wait till you can get the backing of the American people, it may be too late to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you got to put your faith in your elected leaders,
Mm-hmm.
and hope to hell they're making a reasonable decision, and then it's not a selfish, self-serving
Mm-hmm.
reason. And the other question was do I think that the American troops after the war received the treatment that they should have? And I will say my answer to that is no. And I am not, I'll parrot some of, you know, what you heard on television that, well, and also on Facebook, I think, that the American GI, and until the American, no, let's see how it was. The American GI should have at least the same amount of benefits and health care as an illegal alien
Mm-hmm.
in this country, you know, or even a legal alien. You know, you just get into this country and they, you know, throw all this free, you know, you get all these benefits for free. And the people that actually went out and did the deed to keep this free get shortchanged. Now, I do believe it's gotten better, but it needs to get a whole lot, needs to go a whole lot further yet.
So when you got home, like, I'm sure you knew people that were sent over, like, did you keep in contact with any of them? And
No, I know I haven't.
you haven't?
Mm-mm. No, I've not been in. Oh, I'm a member of the VFW, but I never really attended. I guess, joined to support it. Same thing with the American Legion. But no, I have not felt the need to the camaraderie of other military. You know, that's not my thing.
Mm-hmm. So is there anything else that you think would be important that you'd like to share?
No, I can't come up with anything right off.
All right. Well,
Seems like you pulled an awful lot out of me.
well, I appreciate it.
Well,
It was really good information.
Well, I'm
So,
glad I was able to
yeah,
help you with this.
it was really good. Thank you.
Yes, sir. You betcha.